Spend a few minutes discussing amendments that I am filing to the National Defense Authorization Act. My amendments would help reduce the nuclear dangers the world faces today and in the future by either canceling or redirecting funds that the Trump administration would use to develop a new so-called low-yield nuclear weapon towards preparing for non-proliferation activities that will be essential to helping denuclearize North Korea. I also want to thank my colleagues, Senators Elizabeth Warren and Jack Reed, who have been tremendous leaders on the Armed Services Committee in working to ensure that proper congressional authorization is secured for any new or modified nuclear weapons. There is no more important job for Congress than stopping the spread of nuclear weapons, and I thank Senators Warren and Reed for their leadership and commitment to this important task. Let's be clear. When the Trump administration talks about a so-called low-yield nuclear weapon, they are still referring to nuclear weapons comparable to the nuclear bomb that destroyed Hiroshima in the Second World War. There is no such thing as a low-yield nuclear weapon. A nuclear weapon is a nuclear weapon, and they are fundamentally different than any other tool of war. They destabilize, they annihilate, they force others to do the same. This is where the term MAD, mutually assured destruction, comes from. And for these reasons, they should never be used, and we should never falter in the ongoing struggle to reduce and eventually eliminate the danger nuclear weapons pose to the world. But instead, the Trump administration wants new nuclear weapons, and unfortunately, its efforts to develop new, more usable, low-yield nuclear weapons like the W-76-2 seem to be driven more by political requirements than by military requirements. Our military commanders didn't ask for this or any other new nuclear weapons. Instead, the Trump administration told them they were getting this new low-yield nuclear weapon in its nuclear posture review earlier this year, which needlessly expanded our nuclear warfighting capabilities and threatened new scenarios under which we might use our nuclear weapons to respond. The nuclear posture review called for new low-yield weapons like the W-76-2 for unretiring old Cold War era ones like the B-83, megaton, gravity bomb, and expanding the scenarios under which we might respond with nuclear weapons. We already have hundreds of low-yield nuclear weapons, including the B-61 gravity bomb and an air-launched cruise missile. And we will spend hundreds of billions of dollars to upgrade these systems, as well as to develop a new stealth bomber and fighter aircraft to deliver them as part of the existing nuclear modernization program. Given this current capacity, as well as the lack of any documents, reports, or studies justifying the sudden, previously unrecognized need for a new low-yield weapon as part of America's nuclear deterrent, it's hard to understand why we need to spend more money to develop a low-yield nuclear weapon that will add additional strain to a nuclear complex that is already operating at levels unseen since the Cold War and could jeopardize the existing modernization program, which enjoys bipartisan support and which our military leaders have said is the most important nuclear requirement for the military. It makes no sense to spend more money to develop a low-yield nuclear weapon dangerously indistinguishable from a strategic one, especially when our military does not need it. They did not request it. And that's why I have fought this weapon from the very start, and I'm offering an amendment to focus on funding activities that will be necessary to reduce the nuclear danger to the world, whether now or in the future, instead of adding to it by developing a completely unjustified low-yield weapon that adds to the risk that we can actually contemplate fighting a winnable nuclear war. That makes no sense whatsoever. A new nuclear weapon, which the Pentagon did not ask for. We should be heading in the opposite direction. That is the signal that we should be sending to the rest of the world. And with regard to the summit, my hope is that there will be some details that indicate what the concessions have been made by Kim to the United States and to the world. Thus far, there is no evidence of that, because I fear that the only thing that will last from this summit will be the photo, because we will not have had the concessions made that on a verifiable basis can in fact be confirmed, that makes the Korean Peninsula, that makes the world a safer place to be. So today is a momentous day. This will be a momentous week on the floor of the Senate as well in the debating of this new Armed Services Bill, and I'm looking forward to this incredibly important discussion. Mr. President, with that, I yield back, and I question the presence of a quorum.